Our preliminary analysis suggests that the incident was likely caused by a Ukrainian air defense missile fired to defend Ukrainian territory against Russian cruise missile attacks. But let me be clear, this is not Ukraine's fault. Russia bears ultimate responsibility as it continues its illegal war against Ukraine. In the meeting today, NATO allies offered their deepest condolences on the tragic loss of life. They expressed their strong solidarity with our valued ally Poland and made clear that we will continue to support Ukraine in its right to self-defense.
I think you heard us say that we've seen nothing so far that contradicts President Duda's preliminary assessment that this was likely the result of a Ukrainian air defense missile that unfortunately landed in Poland. But we'll continue to assess and share the new information. Whatever its final conclusion, we already know the party ultimately responsible for this tragic incident, Russia. Ukraine has a right to defend itself, and we're committed to supporting Ukraine in every effort it's making to defend itself.
I contacted Scott because I really wanted to hear his opinion about this situation in Poland that, of course, everyone is aware of what took place yesterday. I will just say that, of course, media jump on it like, I don't know what to compare to. But now we have a lot of Polish citizens who are absolutely furious. In regard of Zelensky or anyone from that government, for that matter, to apologize to the Polish citizens for what has taken place and for those two people who apparently lost their lives. Scott, what do you make out of it? What is this situation in your opinion?
Well, first of all, the notion that Russia is somehow to blame is totally absurd. To even begin to concoct an argument that says that Russia's to blame because Poland was trying to shoot down a Russian missile ignores the fact of why Russia fired the missile to begin with. If you're going to go down that path, then you have to ask, where was Poland in the 8 years that Ukraine was bombing and blowing up the citizens of Donetsk? Look, my heart bleeds for the two Polish citizens who died. They're innocent victims. But to sit here and say it's Russia's fault means that Poland turned a blind eye to 8 years of violence inflicted on the citizens of Donbass by Ukraine. I don't accept that. Who's to blame here? Ukraine is to blame. Ukraine caused this conflict. And now, was this a deliberate act on the part of on the part of Ukraine? I have to tell you what, I can make a stronger case that this was a deliberate act on the part of Ukraine than anybody can make this was a deliberate act on the part of Russia. First of all, we know that Russia had nothing to do with this, other than firing a missile that didn't come anywhere near the Polish-Ukrainian border. That's the thing you need to understand, that this missile that was fired far away from anywhere Russian missiles struck. So you have to ask yourself, A, why was this missile fired? What missile was it trying to shoot down? And then you have to go through the dynamics of the system itself. It's a radar-guided system, which means that a radar paints a target in the sky, then the missile is fired and it guides on that radar to the target. Now, I can tell you that we can use surface-to-air missiles in a surface-to-surface configuration simply by pointing the radar in the sky in the direction you want the missile to go, having the missile take a ballistic trajectory and then fall to the earth ballistic. You have to ask yourself, why was the Ukrainian missile flying towards Poland? I think the Ukrainians have a lot to answer for. Right now, I would charge them with murder. I would say that your weapon was fired in the direction of Poland, knowing full well the potential for that weapon to strike someplace in Poland and bringing harm or death to a Polish citizen. To call it an accident, you'd have to explain why the missile flew towards Poland. Why did it fly in the direction of the Russian aircraft? Where was the self-destruct mechanism? These missiles are supposed to go off, and if they don't guide on target, they blow themselves up to prevent this very thing from happening. So there's a whole lot of questions that need to be asked of the Ukrainian government, which, by the way, was one of the first to jump on the story and call it a Russian attack and demand Article 5, NATO get involved, bring in your air defense. Oh, now we have what in the legal profession they call cui bono, who benefits? Ukraine benefits. They get what they've been asking for all along, NATO intervention. Then we have to ask, were other people complicit in this? Why is it that the Estonians, the Latvians, and Lithuanians were immediately jumping on the bandwagon without asking any questions, blaming Russia, talking about Article 4, Article 5 intervention? Why are they talking about using this tragedy in Poland as justification to extend air defense into Ukraine? Because that's what they're talking about now, the need for Poland to beef up its air defense so that it not only protects Polish airspace, but extends into Ukraine. So the Ukrainians attack Poland, kill 2 Polish citizens, and they get the Polish people to foot the bill. And it's not just the cost of the air defense, it means going to war with Russia. Because if you go down this direction, the next missiles that hit aren't going to be accidental missiles. They'll be aimed at targets in Poland because you're at war with Russia. Some of those weapons might have nuclear warheads, so it's bye-bye Poland. Does Poland not understand how they're being used by Zelensky, how they're being used by Ukraine? Do they not understand what's happening here? Look which nations didn't jump on the bandwagon. The nations that are talking about a diplomatic offering, the need for a negotiated settlement. The United States, Germany, France, even the United Kingdom, didn't jump on the Russia did it bandwagon. They said, let's wait. Let's wait and see what the results show. And then they tried to calm things down. Then there's the nations that are screaming for NATO intervention. Poland, Czech Republic, the Baltic states. Why?
Well, but now, actually, Polish President Andrzej Duda, he changed the narrative, okay? Today, it was changed. Yesterday, they were jumping on that narrative. Today, they changed this. So I would like to know, Scott, clearly this was a missile. What was it? 300, those, I don't know.
S-300, yeah.
Okay, for sure that was Ukrainian. Okay. Yeah. Now, my question is this a provocation from Ukraine by that government, Ukrainian government, being a completely insane decision, or this was influenced by, Pentagon?
Well, I don't think the Pentagon influenced this. First of all, let's start with the following. It very well could have been an accident. In war, stuff happens. It's possible that this system was old, poorly maintained, and Ukraine fired it, believing it would lock onto a Russian missile. The system went wild, no self-destruct because it's an old, poorly maintained missile, and it flew towards Poland on its own volition. And what happened was just a horrible tragedy. Now, I would give that credence, except for the fact that Ukraine has over and over and over again carried out provocations specifically designed to get NATO to intervene. Bucha, the murder of those innocent civilians in the Bucha suburb, carried out by the Safari unit of the Ukrainian security services, done specifically to create an emotional excuse that justified the withdrawal from the Istanbul peace agreements that were taking place at that time. How can you possibly negotiate a peace settlement with the Russians when they're murdering Ukrainian civilians in the north? No, the Ukrainian government murdered them, then covered it up and pointed the finger at the Russians. We've seen that. We saw Ukraine desperately asking the NATO to preemptively strike Russia with nuclear weapons even in order to prevent Russia from preemptively striking Ukraine with nuclear weapons, which Russia was never doing. The point I'm trying to get at is I could concede that this could be an accident if I didn't have a history of the Ukrainian government doing absolutely crazy things to provoke the world against Russia. Another missile attack, the Kramatorsk rail station.
Right. Yes.
It was a Ukrainian Tochko-U missile that struck the rail station. Maybe by accident, But if it was by accident, then admit it was an accident, call it a horrible mistake. But instead, they immediately sought to blame it on the Russians. That's the Ukrainian MO. Have something occur, blame it on Russia, hope the West intervenes. In this case, the West wasn't ready to play that game, but Poland and the Baltic states were. What happened with the Polish president isn't that he suddenly woke up and went, oh, I got to tell the truth, is that he got the phone call from Washington, D.C. that said, knock it off. Knock it off. So suddenly he had to change his narrative, but he hasn't changed the outcome. He's still arguing for an enhanced air defense system and the potential of that air defense system protecting Ukrainian airspace. That's still something being considered by the Poles. He's arguing for more money to be sent to Ukraine for better air defense. It's giving Ukraine everything they want, things that they may not have gotten had this incident not occurred, which means you must consider whether or not this was a Ukrainian provocation. I'm not saying with 100% certainty it was. I'm saying any investigation into this incident must consider whether or not Ukraine did this on purpose, because from a technical standpoint, that's one of the only ways you can explain why that missile flew in the direction it did for the distance it did, that it was deliberately configured as a surface-to-surface missile by the Ukrainians for the specific purpose of generating outrage at a time when they were getting smacked around by Russian missiles. So Russia's pounding them. They create a provocation, try to blame it on the Russians to create a crisis for NATO intervention.
Okay, so this to me looks like even Biden, I even like to say his name, okay? Even Biden, he said that this was Ukrainian missile. Okay, so we are on this. We know this was Ukraine, and I'm not questioning this here. But what I'm thinking right now is, what it did to the country of Poland, in my opinion, to big majority of people, that they look at this government now. Well, they never really liked this government, but now they look at this government in the context of helping Ukraine. And now they are, wait a second. So here we have this country that we support, and this country is dropping the nukes on us, or whatever is the weapon, and people are dying, and this country is not apologizing, not saying anything. What's going on here? So I think in this light, Scott, because I'm watching what's going to happen now with this government in the light of this situation from the Polish citizens, because this is just unacceptable.
Well, it's very unacceptable, but I'll give you something else that's unacceptable. What about the hundreds, if not thousands, of Polish citizens that have died in Ukraine fighting for the Ukrainian government, wearing the Ukrainian uniform? What about their bodies? Have they come home yet to Poland? Does Poland repatriate them? Are there funerals? So with all due respect to the Polish people, stop crying. You're at war, baby. You may not know it, but you're at war. Thousands of your soldiers are fighting right now, the Russians in Ukraine. Hundreds are dying, maybe thousands. And if you're not acknowledging it, then I have no sympathy for you. I mean, I'm sorry for the two guys that died. They're innocents. But as a nation, I'm sorry, Poland, you're at war. You are at war. Your government has made a decision to allow Polish citizens, Polish serving military members, to shed the Polish uniform, put on the Ukrainian uniform, and go fight. The question you should be asking is, who's paying their salaries? Is the Polish government still paying these salaries? Does the Polish government provide death benefits to the family? And if the answer is yes to either one of those, then Poland's at war. Poland is at war. And when you go to war, you pay the price. So I'm sorry to be that crude and crass on this, but this isn't just about two innocents.
No, you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. I have nothing else to say at this point. I don't know what can I do as a person at this moment.
Well, you're doing everything you can. Let's finish on a positive note. The only way that anything like tragedy like this can ever benefit society is for society to recognize the root causes and undertake actions to rectify it. You want to hold your government accountable, the first thing you have to do is define that which you want to hold them accountable for, and you're doing that. You're doing a great service to the Polish people. You're doing a great service to the cause of truth, and it's a tough job, but I congratulate you for making the effort.
Thank you, Scott. I'm doing nothing, but at least I can ask someone like yourself who actually can even tell if that was Ukrainian or not, just by the type of that weapon, right? What it was. I don't even know those things. It's just they report, Scott.
But you shouldn't have to know those things.
Yeah, I shouldn't.
In a perfect world, you should never have to know these things. Okay.
But they report this like right away, and they throw on people this, I would say, bullshit stories over and over and over again, and people are still buying this. They are still buying those stories, and then the next day, all of a sudden, because they are not backed up, they change the narrative.
And where's the shame on the part of those who sold the lie? When are the reporters being fired who wrote those stories? Are the government officials being hauled before a court to find out why they said these things without the evidence to back it up? Are the Polish people demanding resignations? Because this is the kind of thing you demand resignations over. This is the kind of thing that should bring down governments.
I agree. Thank you so much for coming on today, because this was like really urgent video. I wanted to bring this to the audience, and I know that Scott posted on his channel as well. Every link you're interested in following Scott, you will find down below this video. Thank you so much, Scott.
Okay, thank you.